and the Oregon City Library Board will come to order at 5:37 p.m. In attendance are Larry Osborne, Cynthia Andrews, David Goldberg, Nick Berkman, Carrie Linder, Elizabeth Zinter, and library staff Greg Williams and Denise Butcher. And we would all like to welcome our newest library board member, which we are very excited about, Elizabeth. Welcome, and it is great to have you on the board.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
All right. I'll make a quick announcement for the official record, and that is that I am moving out of Oregon, and this will be my last meeting, and will be resigning from the board tomorrow. And it has been an incredible pleasure to give back to the community here in Oregon City, and especially as someone who loves libraries in particular. But when it comes to the Oregon City Library, which I still have the most fond memories of growing up in Beaver Creek and knowing that my mom would drive me into town to the Oregon City Library, and the best memories of the greatest librarians who introduced me to the Hardy Boys and Rin Tin Tin and all these books about math and science. And, remember, this is before the internet. So, that opened up a whole new world for me. And I will forever be grateful to just the general idea of libraries, but specifically the Oregon City Library, which has meant so much to me. And just a big thank you to the people of Oregon City and to everyone at the Oregon City Library and everyone I've served with on the board. It's been just an absolute privilege to be able to hopefully give a little bit back to the community that has given me so much and meant so much to me in my life. So let's move on to actual business. And our first item is approval of the minutes from last month. And you should have all received those in your email last week. Are there any additions or corrections that you want to include? And if not, is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from last month.
Second motion.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, no. All right, and then we will move on to the library director's report. My favorite part of the meeting, because I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Conversely, probably many people's least favorite part of the meeting because you have to listen to me ramble on for a little bit. So thank you, Chair Edwards, and congratulations on your move. We will all miss you. I just want to thank you for your service to the community. Thank you for sharing your stories about the library. I assure you that we are going to do our very best to keep this the great library that it is, to honor those memories and those experiences you had. Thank you so much for being such a great chair. Thank you for all the support you've shown me personally and the library staff, and just best of luck in your future endeavors. We all wish you just the best. So
Thank you so much, Greg.
all right, so director's report. So, okay, we'll go through our typical things. I'll try to keep it little briefer. I won't read everything verbatim. The only statistical notes that I wanted to point out this month, in a couple of the social media statistics that are on the report, you'll notice a difference between last month and this month, more significant than usual. One of them, we realized we hadn't been including a couple of our video programs in our adult services programming statistics. So we've started including those. We realized, looking at some of the analytic tools that we use, that the stat we've been reporting for Facebook followers was actually likes. And after conversing with our city and some internal discussions, we think followers is a better stat for us to use. So we've updated the report to use that statistic. And so it looks like from month to month, there was like a 300 increase in the number of followers. It's really not, it's we're just using a slightly different stat that was higher to begin with. So if you saw those and wondered what the increase was, that's the reason. I shared in in the director's report. This is an infographic that we put together. We showed it at the 2020 Oregon City Business Alliance year in review that City Manager Tony Conkle gave. I believe we sent it out one of our newsletters. Don't quote me on that. But it's just, it shows just how busy we've been this year. And this is for the 2020 calendar year. So it does include a couple of months, pre-COVID, and then most of our COVID experience. But even with COVID, I'm really impressed with what the staff has been able to do. The stats that really jump out at me, it's the nearly 12,000 pickup appointments that we've done. And I can tell you our staff, looked at that number and goes, yeah, that seems about right. So 12,000 pickup appointments. Even though the library was closed, we were not as open as normally it is. We still welcomed over 1,200 new card members this year, which was great. Our ebook and e-audiobook usage, this is a great year. Obviously, with COVID, we had more people using our e-resources, so nearly 70,000 circulations of those, which is great to see. And the programming numbers were just, amazing. All credit again to the staff for figuring out how to do virtual programming and putting on over 450 virtual programs during the course of the year, and reaching through engagement and likes and views over 25,000 people. It's phenomenal. So just wanted to share some of those stats and that infographic with you. Library staff updates. Kind of our biggest staff effort this last month was having all of our staff members complete some OSHA required COVID-19 training. That involved watching a series of 4 videos and then having some group training via Zoom on 6 other subject areas that OSHA has said we have to cover. And the best part of it was there was nothing in the training that was new to us or that we weren't doing already when it came to COVID safety protocols. So everybody was very comfortable with everything that we were doing. There was no information that was, oh, you're supposed to wear masks, really? So they've all got that down. So that was great. I want to congratulate our youth services librarian, Barrett Miller, and our technology and library promotion librarian, Erin Novinger, who will both celebrate their 5-year work anniversaries this year. So to them. Library grounds and facilities. We are in the midst of installing our new people counters, which I've mentioned at a couple of previous meetings. These are going to be people counters that will give us a little more granularity on the number of people going in and out of the building, will help us get a better handle on capacities in certain areas of the building. And we should have those installed by the end of the week. Let's see, operations wise, we have added a Saturday circulation shift. So we've got staff coming in Saturday to focus on doing some circulation related activities. That's helped us over the last month, kind of lessen the load for people during the week when it comes to holds and shelving items and doing our pick list. So that's been very helpful. I didn't put it in here, but I can share with you that we are in the process of finalizing our implementation plans for adding a Saturday shift of pickup appointments. So we anticipate being able to announce that in the next week or 2. So watch social media for that, but we'll be able to, we've been able to move some staff around and with some of our new on-calls, been able to redeploy some staff so we can add some hours on the weekend for some hold pickups. Other staffing wise, we had a great meeting. The city has recently hired a behavioral health specialist. She works out of the police department. She's not a uniform or sworn officer. She's a behavioral health specialist. With great experience on people experiencing mental health crises and working with the homeless community. So we met with her. As you can imagine, she's in very high demand from all city departments, but we had a great meeting with her, brainstormed on some ideas for some additional staff training we could do for some of the kind of, let her know what are some of the resources that we're looking for and that we really need to help us deal with some of the issues that we face on a routine basis. And it was great to have her on board at the city, and we're really looking forward to working more closely with her.
That's That's great. And as Denise can tell you, I have experienced personally what you all have to deal with sometimes on a personal basis. So that's very good to hear. Yeah.
Yes, we're thrilled. So
Yeah, well, for those that didn't know, Scott helped me take care of a very tense situation between two patrons. Was it last summer before last?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah,
all right. So now we know we're gonna have to call Scott down from Wyoming.
exactly.
We're gonna have to call the sheriff and say, Sheriff Edwards, you gotta come back down and help us with this. All right, programs and services. Some of the new things that we're going to be doing, that we have been doing and that we're going to be doing. We're in the final phases of getting our no contact printing pickups set up. So hopefully next week, we will allow people will be able to submit a print job online, and we will let them come to the library. They won't need an appointment. They'll be able to come, tell us that they're here to pick up a print job. We'll generate it for them, deliver it to them, no contact, and we're going to waive printing fees, while we're doing this. We want to be able to provide that service to the community. During the month of February, we have been actively recommending books, ebooks, films, other resources to celebrate Black History Month. We have also on social media been put together some profiles of important figures in American history. And once again, as I do, I think almost every month, I have to send my kudos to Gina Bacon, our adult services librarian and graphic designer extraordinaire. She makes just such wonderful graphics that just look fantastic. And so she's put together a great series of Black History Month posts and graphics for us, linking things to items in the catalog. So we're really happy to be able to do that. We have added several new grab bag offerings. So the grab bags have been extremely popular and well received by the community. So this month we have 3 new bags, 2 of which are seasonal and 1 is permanent. So the seasonal ones we have an adult Black History Month grab bag, and that can include fiction, nonfiction, movies, music, just highlighting all of the great resources and materials we have from Black authors and Black creators. We have, we have put together a children's holiday Valentine's Day book bag. So we'll be doing that for the month of February. And my favorite thing I got to do this month was give a book bag to a small patron who was about 2 and show him that in the bag, not only were there 3 Valentine's Day picture books, but there were chocolates and 2 lollipops as well. So he was very pleased with that. So, and then finally, we've added, this is one we're gonna keep going on even past February, a board book bag. So we've had some requests from parents of our youngest patrons that would love to have some more board books to share with their kids. So we put together board book bags. And like the rest of our bags, the book bags have been, they fly like hotcakes. So we're glad we were able to do that for the community. We have set up a table in the 7th Street vestibule where patrons can pick up tax forms. Every year in libraries, the new year rings in, and about 15 seconds in on January 2nd, or the day that we're open, people start calling for tax forms. So we wanted to have some tax forms available. So we've printed out the 1040s, the state 40 forms, and made copies available in the 7th Street vestibule. People could just show up, walk through the lobby, grab them and go. We have a handout that's got some tax resources, IRS, AARP, and our reference desk information, so we can help connect people with the resources they need. And as tax season progresses, if we get lots of requests for a specific form, we'll add that to the table just to make sure that we've got the most common ones that people are requesting available. Let's see, our Elevated Readers Book Club chose their 2021 reading list. So the books are listed in the director's report. They got some great picks there. Partnerships and outreach. I had meant to mention this at our last meeting and I neglected to do so. So this is from December, but I wanted to share it with everybody. As you may or may not know, we have a teen advisory group that worked with our youth services department to help us think about services to teens and our younger patrons. That group hadn't been able to meet during COVID. but during the month of December, we were finally able to get them back together. And we didn't have a set agenda. It was much more of a, hey, let's just get back together, let's touch base, let's see how everybody is doing. And our staff member, Sabrina, she made sure they knew all of the resources we were able to offer, and really just made herself available to talk to them and to check in with them, see how they were doing, and to let them know that, anytime they have troubles, or, if they just want someone to talk to, we're there for them. So it was great to be able to reconnect with that group after a while. Let's see. Story walks. So this is really exciting. We were really pleased to be able to do this. So we've partnered with the Parks Department to offer a series of story walks. The first one occurred in January. And so library staff selected a book and helped the Parks Department figure out how to arrange the story walk. And they put the pages of the book in the windows of the Oregon City Pool. And the book for January was to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. It was a book called Be a King. And so we had the pages of the book in the pool, in the windows of the pool facility, and kids all during the month were able to come there and just read the pages. We have some great pictures of kids reading it. We got some great feedback and thanks from parents for putting that on. Next month, we are planning on doing another story walk. This one will be at the Ermitinger House, and it's going to be a series of I can't remember the title of the book, but it's some humorous poems for kids. So that will be fun. And then in March, we are going to do what we're calling our Rain or Shine Challenge. So the Parks Department will come up with 10 outdoor activities that people can do. The library will come up with 10 indoor activities that people can do, and we will let people register and measure their progress on our Beanstack app, which we used for our summer reading program this year. And there will be prizes for completing those challenges. And so we're really looking forward to that. So just some great partnerships with the Parks Department. I wanted to highlight every year, or for the past couple of years, our youth services staff have appeared at the Oregon City School District Equity Conference. And what they do is they give teachers information, excuse me, both about finding books in the catalog that feature diverse voices, and also give kind of a best of the year list. So they pick a handful of books that they really think teachers will appreciate and be able to use in the classroom. This year, because of COVID, we weren't able to do that in person, but Sabrina and Barrett did participate in the conference virtually. So they both gave Zoom sessions to the teachers. In total, they reached about 90 K through 12 teachers in the Oregon City School District. The great thing about Zoom was we were able to record the sessions. So we're going to be posting those on our webpage. So parents can also get the benefit of hearing our librarians give some book talks and learning about some resources the library has. Sorry, I just need to scroll. Okay, and then finally, around Link in the Link Cooperative, during the month of January, we solicited artwork for our teen summer reading program. So we sent out, we asked the community, this was countywide, so every library asked their teams to submit artwork that we can use as part of the upcoming summer reading program. It'll be featured in flyers, promotions. We are very hopeful that this is going to be the year that an Oregon City teen wins. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. Nothing untoward is going to happen. We've got representatives from every library in the county who votes on these things, but we feel this is our year. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed. Excuse me. The other notable thing I wanted to share that the Link as a cooperative, that the Link Cooperative is doing as a library district. Nearly 200 libraries across the nation have signed on to a statement by the Urban Libraries Council, a statement on race and social equity. I've presented the statement here, and so this idea of the libraries in Clackamas County, the directors of our libraries signing on to that came up about 3 months ago in our directors group. And as part of the process of doing the work to sign on to that, we coordinated, we had every library in the district kind of do an inventory of all the programs, offerings, and things they are doing to promote equity, promote diversity, promote inclusion. I'm not going to go over the whole thing. I included that report in the board packet. That's that 12-page spreadsheet that you see. I want to give some kudos to one of our staff members, Jen Giovanetti, who actually put that together on behalf of the Link Library District, and it looks great, great rainbow colors. The thing that the directors took away from that was, so often, we're all kind of working in our own little worlds as individual city libraries, and we don't get a lot of, sometimes we don't get a lot of time to compare what we're doing and to learn what everybody else is doing. Getting all that material together and seeing everything that we are doing as a cooperative, it was great. I mean, we thought, wow, we all have this feeling that there's always more that we can do, to promote diversity and to increase access to our libraries, but having every library kind of contribute what they were doing and seeing the scope and breadth of everything that's happening in the county, it was really great. So we were really pleased with that. I wanted to share it with you. And just to let you know that the directors of the Link Libraries are planning to sign on to this statement. I personally feel it is extremely consistent with our adopted vision, mission, core values, our guiding principles. And it's also very consistent with the resolution that the City Commission passed in June. Just challenging city departments to facilitate conversations, to address barriers to access, and to promote a more inclusive Oregon City community. So,
Greg,
yes.
I had a question. When you were describing the fact that all that was summarized across all the programs, I was wondering, is there a place that somebody in not just Oregon City, but if I wanted to know all the programs that were going on, on a calendar, is that possible? So I could join other library programs that are happening.
So yeah, so if you go to on the catalog currently, there is a consolidated Google Calendar, which tries to get all the events that individual libraries are doing. The challenge we've always faced in getting a truly consolidated calendar in something a little nicer than a Google Calendar is every city is different. Every city uses their own calendaring or their own website software. And it's been difficult to find a single platform that everybody can put their information in, and that would create this really nice consolidated, pretty easy to use calendar. So it's something that's on our list, but at the moment, if you go to the website, that's about the best that we have at the moment, is that combined.
I know, I really like the weekly one that's sent out by Oregon City Library. Comes out, I think, on Sunday mornings or Sunday.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great summary of what's happening that week for programs.
Great. Thank you, Dave.
Can I ask a question about the spreadsheet here too?
Yes, absolutely.
Clarification. So the responses on this are all of the libraries that were involved in the group.
Correct. Yes.
Anything that says specifically what the Oregon City Library, which ones of these you guys are doing or we are doing?
So no, and that was a conscious effort by the equity committee. So the group that helped put this together. We actually take a step back. Throughout our 13 Link libraries, we have individual committees where staff members contribute and participate. So we have an adult services committee, a youth services committee, a circulation committee. They all contributed ideas and kind of looked in their world what they were doing. They passed that all onto the equity committee, which is another committee, and they're the ones that consolidated this. They had thought about identifying individual libraries, by their activities, and they consciously decided not to do so because they wanted this to be kind of a link-wide document and show what was happening, county-wide. They also wanted to make sure that, if there's some area where one library might be particularly strong, they didn't want it to become oh, look how great one library is doing. Now I can tell you we have a lot of things on that list, on that list. list. And so there's some that we're really proud of, and there's a good degree of Oregon City represented in this list. If you have questions on specific ones, I'm happy to, I can do the research and figure out which libraries, are doing that or engage in those activities.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions or comments? No. Okay. Then the only other thing on the director's report is just some positive feedback we received, and I love the picture of a patron hugging books. That was my favorite picture of the month, so had to share that. So.
Excellent. Thank you, Greg. And just to be clear, are there any other, there are no more comments or questions before we move on?
I was going to ask, you've gone over the stats that you're going to report, correct?
The stats are there. If yeah, the ones that I pointed out were the ones that had something something notable about them. If you have questions on any other stats, I'm happy to.
Well, I was curious again about the, I saw that like the registrations, or which I assume are cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
That from year to year, we're about, I'm doing this from memory because I don't have the means to point up those reports while I'm on Zoom. But if I recall correctly, from last year to this year, we have like 1,800 less registrations. Is that true from what you see?
I don't have the number off the top of my head, but you are correct that there has been a big drop. So yes.
And then the other question was, so then you indicated, I like that summary sheet that you presented, and I had seen that, I think, in one of your the library's reports or whatever that came out. And you said on there that we had again, a fairly large number of new registrations, right? I can't remember the number, but
about 1,200.
About 1,200. Okay, so assuming my guess of 1,800, so that means we're down. Maybe we're down, but we're up 1,200. But since we're doing a comparison with the numbers,
yeah,
we actually have lost about 3,000 card holders. Is that a fair
I wouldn't necessarily say we lost them. I just say we're not gaining them as quickly as we normally do. So I think in an average month when the library is fully open, we had an average of about 200 new card holders per month. That would get in. Right now, since really the main way that we're getting that is online through our e-card application, I think we're averaging about 30 to 40. So yes, it is down, but I think that's mainly a function of the fact that most people prefer, when they want to get a library card, they fill out the paper form. We do have to at some point look at their ID just to verify their mailing address. That's harder to do online. We do, our e-card does let people register initially. They get immediate access to a limited number of resources. And then they can make an appointment with us to come and just show us their ID, and we'll convert it to a full card. But yeah, just less traffic in the building, and it's a little harder to get a card these days until we're fully open again.
Well, one time I was kind of noodling with these, with the statistics, and one of the things I was looking at is, I know we have the total number of Oregon City, our population, I guess, and then we have the unincorporated population.
Uh-huh.
And then I was trying to look at, how many people have library cards in each one of those groups in terms of an outreach kind of concept.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if we do some, well, another thing that would be interesting is if I know that people are dropped off of their card is removed if they haven't had activity for a certain length of time, and I don't know what that length of time is, but is that true?
Yes, that is true. A few years ago, all of the libraries, excuse me, agreed. I'm 99% sure of this, so I'll confirm next month, but it's 3 years. So we look at card holders who have not, and I see Denise nodding.
It is 3 years, yeah.
Right.
3 years. Okay.
It's embarrassing because I was the one who wrote the policy. I was like, okay, I should remember it, but yeah. So if there's a card holder that hasn't had any activity in 3 years, and they don't have any fines or fees due to missing materials, they will get purged out of the system. And that does happen now
twice a year, Denise, or once a year?
Yeah, and it just happened a couple months ago.
Yeah, it happened I believe it happens twice a year. We used to do it on a rolling basis, but there were some records retention issues with the county. And so they strongly urged us to move to doing that on an annual basis so that we could better document the records that we were purging and getting rid of. So that happens now on an annual basis. So there's always a month that, you know, it looks like, okay, number of cardholders, number of cardholders. And then there seems to be this big dip during a month.
That's what I had assumed. I'd assumed that we were seeing some of that with those numbers.
Yeah.
But in any case, I still am curious of how we can try to figure out how we, you know, again, with unincorporated area and then again, just people holding cards, but how many people are really active and just our way of just trying to get people involved. And I guess a lot of it's awareness, you know, so anyhow, I'll drop it for now.
All right, well, this is a theme that we'll talk about some today, I think, when we talk about budget stuff and some other things. And I anticipate in the next couple of months, I'll be able to bring some information about some thoughts and ideas we have about how to reach more far-flung areas of the service area. So,
Greg, I have a question about that
patient
last
with-
issue.
yes.
For the people who are purged, do they have to reapply, or is there some process that they can, you know, not go through the whole application process again?
Sorry. No, when a person is actually purged out of the system, it completely removes them from the system. So in that case, they would have to reapply.
Thank you.
For people who have, you know, for people who have activity, who are still in the system, even if they haven't, you know, had any activity in a couple of years, as long as that record is still in the system, they can get that card reactivated. They have to go to the library and, you know, fix whatever problems may exist, whether it's an address verification or take care of some fines. But in those cases, we can get them, you know, get them set up pretty easily. But once they've been purged, yes, they have to reapply.
All right, any more comments or questions? All right, then we'll move on to public comments, and I don't believe we have any lined up. All right, so we will move on to the next item, which is discussion items. And the first one is the 2020 Community Satisfaction Survey.
Okay. So everybody has their packet, yes, with the material in there. So okay, I won't share my screen. We'll talk, and it's already 6:10, so I'll try to go more quickly. So I wanted to share with you the results of the recent community survey that the City of Oregon City put together. In the staff report, there's a link to the city webpage where you can view the full report. It's like 160 pages. Lots of interesting information, but it's 160 pages. In brief, a couple of points I want to make about that. I presented some summary information about the methodology of the survey, how it was administered. The city hires a vendor to do that. They did it in 2018. This is the second time they've done it. They strive to get a good cross-section, demographic cross-section of the city. So that's one thing I just want to point out. On that second slide, it shows the location of survey respondents. So this survey was only distributed to city residents. It was not distributed to anybody who lives in the unincorporated area of our service area, because primarily this is a city survey. That's something I'd like to talk to the city about. You know, is there a way in the future we could augment at least the library portion of that so that we could get feedback from our whole service area? But I'm sure there's some complications with that, but that's something we'll look at, you know, when they do this again in 2 years. So the bottom line, you know, the really great news is that city residents still have, you know, continue to have a very positive perception of the city. Lots of people rating Oregon City as an excellent or good place to live. In general, Oregon City rates higher than other cities in the overall quality of city service. We get really strong marks citywide about customer service, particularly, you know, the ability of people to talk to somebody and get some responses. You can see there we've got I gave selected slides about some of those, the responses on some of those questions. So when they asked about the overall satisfaction of city services by category, by major category, so the library once again rated very, very highly. Not lost, but we came in second to police department by 1 percentage point. So, that's Jim will get to lord that over me for the next couple of years. So, but we're right up there. And the thing that I want to take away from this is when you look at especially the ratio of people who have a positive perception of the library versus the people who don't have a positive perception, 75% of people have very satisfied or satisfied, as opposed to 5% who are not satisfied. So the vendor was very, very wanted to point out that that's an extremely good ratio, and our city commission was very supportive. They were glad to see that. Looking at the trend analysis, so there are a couple of areas where the library, compared with the results from 2018, the library has gone down. This was a finding that the vendor had said they've seen across, cities across the country. This is COVID related. We simply have not been open to the degree that people have come to expect that libraries are open. We have not been able to provide the services that people really want from their library. And even though the survey is meant to encompass a whole 2-year period from 2018 to 2020, this was distributed, right in the middle of the COVID pandemic. And so we saw some similar numbers with the offerings by the Parks and Recreation Department. Their live recreation offerings, people expressed a lower level of satisfaction with those than they did last year. Again, like us, they haven't been able to put on nearly as many recreational programs. So, when I talk to the staff about that, and when I talk to you about that, nobody likes to see scores going down. I mean, I can tell you, I hate seeing that, but I think there's context and a reason for that. And I think the reason is not anything that we've done differently, any areas in which, staff are not doing the best they can, everything they can, and not providing great service. I think it's an overall expression of frustration about the COVID situation and our inability to provide the services that people really want from us. So
Actually, I think it's kind of amazing that considering the past year that there's a 75% high rating. I would not have been surprised if it had been lower.
Thank you. Yeah, I was down when it first came out. I saw it, I was like, oh man. But yes, it is what it is. And yes, you're right. 75% of people who are very satisfied with the services. It's great. The other really interesting things that we pulled from this were the way that people get their information. It surprised a lot of us that the Trail News was so highly rated and that was such one of the primary ways that people get their information. So we have taken that and we are looking at how we can maybe change the content that we put in the Trail News, knowing that this is a primary source that people are using. We're thinking maybe there's some better ways to build awareness of library resources and library services. One of the challenges with the Trail News is it's every 2 months, which basically means we have to have our content done 3 months before it hits, before it's published. Especially during COVID, it's been really hard to plan 3 months in advance and to know what we're going to be able to promote there. But we have some different ideas about how we can approach that. And I think the city's also looking at, how they might make some changes to make that a more, an even more useful and valuable publication. So,
But again, it's only Oregon City.
yes,
So our unincorporated folks are.
Yep, absolutely. So yes, and so that's also great to see that social media is a very is a source that people do get information from. We've tried to put content link wide into the Clackamas County newsletter. We've had some success doing that. But yeah, it's for city residents. It is one of those a resource that gets used.
The other kind of interesting thing was the frequency of communication. People seem to really like monthly communications. So most of our information that we send out, our newsletters are on a monthly basis. So it's good to hear that we're on the right track. That's the frequency that we should be aiming for. I'm going to go down to on your, it is, let's see, page 49 of your packet. This is the importance satisfaction rating chart that the vendor put together. And let me just explain it a little bit. So what the vendor does is they give a combined score. So they look at what people rank both as, I think I got muted. All right. The importance satisfaction rating, respondents rank both what is most important to them and what they have the least amount of satisfaction with. And so the vendor takes those two components and tries to create effectively a prioritized list of, here are things that your community is telling you are really important, and here are the areas where you may not have as high of a satisfaction as you might like. And let's look at the intersection of those two things. And that's really where you should consider putting some more resources and paying some more attention. And so when this came out, the two things that rose to the top of the list, in those categories are outreach programs and or services in the community and events for teens. And it was great to get that feedback from the community that that's really, some areas where we could improve. It was also really gratifying because before the survey came out, those were the exact two areas that we were really focusing on internally, especially as we started talking about budget, about things we want to do more of. And the two things that we really identified that we really want to do some more on were teen services and community outreach. So it validated to me that we're on the right track. Staff, we're on the right track. We've been hearing what the community is saying, and we're on the right track of kind of prioritizing some of those services. So we'll talk a little bit about that when we talk budget in just a bit. So, other than that, so those are kind of our takeaways from the community survey. If anybody has got questions or other observations or concerns, I'm happy to hear them.
Questions? All right.
You're muted, Cynthia.
No questions?
On the
Salsa?
services for teens, I'm wondering, who did they ask? Because parents, adults, grandparents, teachers, whatever, will respond in one way about that. I think all adults would like to see teens be more involved in the library and community use of the library. But I'm wondering what teens themselves think about that, because they're so social media oriented. I'm wondering whose needs are being met. I think that's a really valid question. And I know we have a small active group of teens, and that's great. And I'm really glad to hear about that, especially, teens, who are not cisgender. And I think that's really an important role the library has played. But I would want to have some more information as library director from teens themselves before I ran down the teenage road very, very far with a lot of money bags. I just think we need more information there because of who responded to the survey.
Okay. That is great feedback. Thank you, Cynthia. And of course, you're right. Yes, we don't want to do anything without talking to our patrons and getting some more information from them. So that is definitely some activities we'll engage in. And I will say, I don't want to say, I also want everybody to know that our youth services staff have made efforts. They do teen programming. And I think any kids librarian will tell you, teens are a tough bunch to reach, especially when you're talking to libraries. There's so much competition for their attention. Things they like to do don't necessarily lend themselves well to a library environment. our youth services staff has told me that, we're very fortunate that the Oregon City School District has a lot of opportunities and activities for teens to do, where they might be, focusing on school-related things. So but they're a tough group to reach. We have been trying, and we're gonna see if there's some other things we can do. So, but yes, we'll make sure that's informed by feedback from actual teens themselves.
I didn't mean to, denigrate any efforts by the youth services staff. They're to be commended for the amazing efforts that they've made, especially over this past COVID year. And I know that they're engaging, a number of teens, and I think that's great. And they know it's an uphill battle. I just would be concerned about committing a lot more budget resources to that without more information. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, great feedback. Thank you.
All right, if there are not any more comments or questions, we'll move on to discussion item number 4, the 2021-23 library budget discussion.
Okay. All right, so this time, well, I think I will share my screen because I just want to make sure anybody watching this for posterity sees this. So give me 1 second. Okay, everybody see that okay? Library budget discussion? Yes, okay. Okay, so the first thing I'll say is I talked to Denise a little bit about this. I don't know what kind of engagement at the board level we've had during budget preparation in the past. So this is kind of my first try. It sounds like there might not have been a huge amount of engagement of the library board in the budget process in the past. So I'm trying. I want to engage everybody here. I want to have discussions about what our budget process is. If there's a better way to do this, please give me feedback. This is my first attempt at having some of these conversations. So if there's too much detail, if there's not enough detail, certainly please let me know. What I wanted to do just real quick for this discussion is I just wanted to give everybody an overview of the city budget calendar. So kind of the internal timeframes that we're looking at for preparing our budget for the next biennium. I wanted to share with you what's kind of on our radar that we're keeping in kind of the front of our minds as we prepare the budget request and go forward in the process. And then I wanted to answer any questions you had, hear your feedback, hear about your take on priorities or things we should be focusing on as we go through the budget process. So that's the plan for this discussion. And again, if there's anything we want to change during the meeting or in the future, please let me know. So first, I just wanted to give you the city budget calendar. And the main thing I wanted to make sure everybody knows is the budget process. It goes pretty quick. There's lots of back and forth between us and the finance department. So I've given you the budget the budget calendar and shown where our library board meetings fit within that budget calendar. So basically during our preparation of the budget before it's taken by finance and kind of taken to the next phase of the process, we've got this board meeting and we've got our March board meeting. So any discussions that we want to have, to get your feedback on the budget, we should really have those today, and we can have some during the next meeting as well. And that's just a function of the budget calendar, the way it is, and the deadlines that we have as a city for having hearings and getting the budget adopted and all that good stuff. So that's the budget calendar.
Could I ask a question about that, Greg?
Sure.
Could you go back? So it looks like from this calendar, in 2 days, you are going to submit budget workshops and budget worksheets and a narrative. So that's in 2 days. So presumably that's already been done or it's in the final stages of editing. What's involved with that? I mean, is that basically the budget that the full budget that you're wanting to go forward with?
No, so what that's going to involve is a couple of different things. So the first thing the finance department needs our help with is we look at where we are during the current fiscal year And they need our help in projecting where we're going to end the fiscal year. Because that calculation of what's in your ending fund balance informs, next year's budget. So that's one component of what we're doing. They also want to get an initial idea of what we're thinking about the next biennial budget looks like. So yes, we are going to give them, if we've got, known significant personnel changes that we're thinking about, if we've got some, strong ideas about, particular areas we might want to change our budgetary allocations, we prepare that and give it to finance now. They then take it, they're going to digest it. They're going to, look at, they're going to come back with their reasonableness check, and, they're going to check their projections on revenues, their projections on personnel costs and benefits. And then they'll come back to us and say, okay, we took what you gave us. Here's kind of what we're thinking. And it's kind of that iterative process. So what we're giving them now, I would say it's kind of a, yeah, we're pretty confident this is kind of what we're looking at, but we still need to have some more fleshing out of what the budget priorities are and what the budget looks like. Does
So
that help?
you're forecasting through the end of June, basically. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's one component of what we're doing now. So we forecast to the end of June, and then we give some preliminary information about what we think the next biennium looks like.
So a question around that. Have you reviewed the strategic plan to see what we're supposed to be doing from that standpoint? For some reason, back in my mind, I thought we were supposed to be doing a survey as part of the strategic plan, and I just wondered if you budgeted.
There is lots of assessment. So in the strategic plan, there's lots of assessment. In the next month or so, I'm going to bring back some assessment activities that we're going to be undertaking. We're also going to have some discussions about the strategic plan and the status of the various initiatives that were in there. I'll be 100% honest, with the year of COVID, we have not had a lot of bandwidth to focus on a lot of those strategic plan initiatives. Some of them, we have already done or we're in the process of doing. I need to put together kind of a snapshot so that I can bring it back to you and share with the City Commission and the Library Board kind of where we are on each one of those initiatives. I will let you know, I think we're also going to have some discussions on, knowing what we know now, where we are with COVID, kind of how the world has changed. It would be a good opportunity to look at some of those initiatives and really decide, are these still the ones that we want to focus on? My understanding is that the strategic plan process was always done with the idea that this is a living document that we need to kind of evaluate as we go along and make sure that everything we're doing still makes sense. So I anticipate having some of those conversations. I don't think there's anything that's in the current strategic plan that is not going to be supported by any budget that we put together. So
okay, I didn't know if we did a survey, if we would need outside support to do that, like a consulting firm.
We might. So there are some assessment activities I feel pretty good about that we can do internally, or that we can use our cities, some of our city resources to help us with. As we go along, there might be some assessment activities that we do need to get outside help with, and we've got some areas in the budget that we can put some money aside for. So, any other questions about the budget calendar or kind of the process that we go through?
In that report where it says balance, and on those different categories, we have like a budget and then it says balance. Is that balance like what is that like what we've expended? I'm not sure.
Oh, in the financial report that I included.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, the balance that's showing on that report, and I don't have it up in front of me, so Denise will correct me if I'm wrong. On that report, the balance is the difference between what's budgeted in a particular category and what we've expended in that category. So if we budgeted, 10 grand for the biennium and we've already spent 5,000, $5 grand of that, it'll show a balance of $5,000.
All right, thanks. I'll have to go back and look at that again.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And that report, again, I'm happy to get any feedback you have. That's a roll up, by significant category. There's lots of individual accounts in those things, but I don't know how useful it is, to look at our office supplies line things like that. If you're interested, sure, we can go over it, but that's the boring stuff. So
I did have a budget question though around, do we have a reserve fund and do we budget for that? Or do we
so we
balance it?
have a community facilities fund, and we do, so in the past biennium, we put 20 grand a year into that community facilities fund, and that is intended to be for future capital needs. We do have a fund balance in the library fund, so there are some accumulated funds, that we don't spend everything in that fund every year. So that there is enough there to make sure that, should a terrible catastrophe occur or there's some huge drop in revenue, that we at least have funds there to make sure that we can, weather a storm of a temporary nature, temporary duration. So, those are kind of the two reserves. So ending fund balance in the library fund and the community facilities fund. And Denise, those are the only two that those are the only two reserve or funds that we have where we're reserving money, correct? Okay. That answer your question, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, library is just an interesting department within the city since a lot of the funding's coming through the library district. So
Yep.
it's it's just interesting.
Yep, yes. Yes, it is. Okay, any other questions? I can only see only a few of everybody at the, here, let me, okay, now I think I'm seeing everybody. So, okay. Please speak up if you have a question and I don't notice it. Okay. All right, so on our radar, so as we've been putting together the budget, as we've been thinking about the next biennium, these are just kind of the things that are, kind of at the top of our mind. So first of all, the library district distribution, as Nick mentioned, our primary source of revenue for the library is our district taxes. So, everybody who is a resident of the county, except for Johnson City is a resident of the library district and pays the same tax rate. We just recently got our projections from the county on what the next next biennium distribution is going to be. It's effectively flat. So their estimate, I should say, we won't know for certain until collections actually come in. But given the COVID situation, given the general economic situation, the county felt that they backed off on a couple of their projections on how they project both revenue growth and the amount of people who will pay their taxes on a timely fashion. So when you take that all into consideration, their estimate was about 2.5 million. That's about 50 grand from difference from the last estimate. So not a huge, it doesn't concern me that it's way down. It's just not, we're probably not going to not grow as much as we've seen in the past couple of years. So but that's something that we're just looking at. So the other big thing, so revenue that we're looking at are overdue fines. So during COVID, all of the libraries in Clackamas County have agreed that we're not charging fines, overdue fines to folks. People are having enough struggle during this period as it is, and we didn't feel it was the right thing to charge people overdue fines, especially when it might not be safe to go to the library or people have concerns about going outside. So we have not been assessing fines. So for us, that is a revenue hit. So that's about $40,000 a year that has been built into previous budgets. We're not going to get that this fiscal year. I anticipate until we're well out of the COVID woods that the libraries are probably going to continue to not assess late fees. So there's going to be a revenue impact to that. The other thing that we think about, when we look at fines, fines are also, they're a huge equity. They're an equity consideration. So other systems in our region, including Multnomah County and Washington County, most recently have gone fine-free. So they've eliminated fines. link-wide, we've had conversations with the other link libraries about doing that, and it's not something that is fiscally feasible for every single library in the district at this point. So we do try to do these things as one cooperative.
Greg, a question, is lost material included in this?
No, lost materials are, well, let me think. I will get back to you on that. They may be the way that the city tracks it. Maybe Denise, do you know, in that 40 grand, is that a combination of lost and overdue?
It shouldn't be. I separate it out when I make the deposit. So,
Okay. I'll double check on that.
Yeah.
But even if it's combined, by far the biggest component of fine revenue is overdue fines.
Yeah.
It's those are the things that people pay. So, part of when we're looking at the budget, part of me thinks that, and I don't know what kind of conversations Mo has had with the board on the whole issue of fines and going fine free or things like that. But part of me thinks, well, we're not getting fine revenue anyway. We're kind of in a position where, we might be able to think about, maybe if we're looking towards a future where we don't have fines, maybe we think about not budgeting, as much or anything for fine revenue. I'd be happy to hear your thoughts on that, when we have the discussion part of it. But
to answer your question, Craig, she's mentioned it before, but there were obviously quite a few questions and concerns about such a dramatic change, but we never had a full discussion on that.
Okay, that is great to know. So I think that maybe that would something that be warrant a future conversation.
That might be a good topic for the big task force too.
Yes, that's another good topic.
If we actually look at changing the rate of taxation or whatever.
So I think when we do budget, we are going to budget. We're going to do our best to kind of look forward 2 years in the future and figure out what an actual, a reasonable amount to expect for fine revenue is going to be. But again, I think at least for the first part of the next fiscal year, we're probably still going to be in a position where all libraries in Clackamas County are not charging any fines. So, we're going to have to budget the revenue accordingly on that. So,
Greg, at some point as part of this budget discussion, could you tell us what the length of the bond repayment is and sort of what, I'm sure there's a line item for it, but I didn't honestly study it that detail. But
I can tell you how much it is, and how we'll talk about it in a bit. The actual, I would have to go look at the budget book, or Denise, do you know?
No, I don't remember.
I believe it was a 20-year bond, and it would have been, in 2016 that we got it, or 2015, around there. So I'm presuming it's got at least 10 to 15 years left on it. So, but I will research that and I will bring that back. But I can tell you how much the bond payment is. So let's see. The other thing on our radar on the revenue side, we were very fortunate to get some CARES funding for a lot of the unanticipated expenses that we had due to COVID. I think between last fiscal year and this fiscal year, it was about $100,000 that we got, which was great and helped. We don't know what, we don't know what the future looks like for CARES funding, going forward. So that may be a revenue source, especially for more unexpected expenses related to the pandemic that we might not be able to count on going forward. So that's just something that's always in the back of our mind. Okay. Expenses. So kind of the things that, we think about when we're looking at expenses for the budget. So something that concerns me a bit is when we talk about our operational needs, our library goals, especially some of the things in the strategic plan, what the community tells us they want from us. There's a question, do we have adequate staff to be able to do that? There's a lot that we do. I try to share every month all the great things that our staff do. And, like any business or any organization, there's always more things out there that you could do. And you have to balance what you can do with the resources, especially the human resources you have, with what you're trying to accomplish. So that's an area that, you know, as we look to the budget, it's kind of figuring, all right, do we have the right, you know, do we have adequate staff to do everything that we envision being on our plate? Along with that, I'm working with our HR department. We're taking a look at our library job descriptions. A lot of them have not been updated in a number of years. And especially given some of the areas that we want to focus on going forward, like outreach and doing some other things, we need to take a look at those job classifications to make sure they actually match the work that we're asking people to do. And as part of any kind of job description review, you're also looking at compensation. So, you know, we have to make sure that we're asking people, if we're asking people to do work that we want them to do, that we are actually compensating them fairly and doing, you know, compensating them appropriately for the work that we're doing. So, you know, we have limited revenue resources again for any of that, but that's something that we're looking at. We have about a $415,000 annual debt payment. So that's principal and interest on that. It's about 415. We do get some general fund support, which helps with that. During the last biennium, our general fund support was $150,000 a year. So we're always very grateful for general fund support that we get. That's
Did you say 150,000 per year, or was that for the biennium?
No, 150,000 per year.
Per
yes.
year. Okay, thanks.
Yes, so 300,000 for the biennium.
Okay.
Do you know when the last time anybody looked to see whether it makes sense to refinance that debt? Because, you know, interest rates have gone down substantially. I don't know where we are.
We have a new finance director who started December 28th. He was here in the library last week, and yes, that was one of the questions I asked.
Good.
So
Good question.
he's looking into it. He's got a lot on his plate right now. So, but yes, a great question, David. I'd love to know if there's an opportunity to
It probably is.
Things. Yeah. So, and then as we've seen, demand for electronic materials resources, that was one of the things on the community survey where people said they, you know, we could, another area they'd like to see some more, you know, that we could probably improve our satisfaction ratings. The problem with electronic materials and resources, just compared with physical, they're always much more expensive. You know, it's an ebook is, we could potentially spend $100 or more on an ebook when the physical version, you know, might cost us 10 or 15. So, and databases and, you know, those are expensive. Canopy movie streaming, you know, it's a great resource to offer. That's on a pay-per-use basis. So the more people use it, the more it hits our bottom line. So it's finding that balance between providing the electronic resources people need with, you know, the costs that are associated with that. So always something we're looking at pretty closely during this budget. Expense-wise, we are looking at, you know, we have found that virtual programming, it works well in a lot of situations for us, and it's a really good way to expand our reach to both our service area and even beyond. We know that even when we're back to full, you know, back to fully being in the building and doing more in-person programming again, that virtual programming aspect is something we want to retain. We don't want to lose it because we've developed some really great expertise in it. We've had some really good experience with it. We want to keep doing it. There's, as with everything, there are costs associated with it. So, but that's something that we're planning to budget for to make sure that we can still offer some of those virtual programs. We're looking at the need for doing some building reconfiguration. We've learned a lot about what, you know, some of the safety concerns in a post-COVID world. We want to make sure that if there is a COVID-23 or a COVID-24, that, you know, maybe our facility is better set up to accommodate that so that we don't have to take, you know, as drastic measures like closing the building. So that could go to things like, you know, moving things around to create more space in the stacks. We have some big concerns about some of the furniture that we have in the library, especially in the kids area. It's all fabric covered, which it's probably not the best, the best thing currently. So we're looking, there might be some capital expenses. We're looking at maybe there's some alternate funding sources we could tap for that, but something that's on our mind. As we talked about a little earlier, there is a long-term need to make sure we're adequately funding a capital repair and replace program. We have a great building, and we need to make sure that this building is viable and functional for the long term. And that requires putting some money aside to make sure that we can manage those costs going forward. As we also talked about, there are some potential capital needs to better serve the entire service area. When we talk about things like drop boxes or smart lockers, situated throughout our service area, there's the initial capital costs to purchase those, to get them installed. There's also the ongoing operational, how do you service those? How do you make sure you have staff to go back and forth, or somebody to go back and forth and empty those things? So those are things that we're looking at in the budget. And then finally, we talked with our facilities folks, trying to kind of envision, what are the next facility things that might need to be done in the next 2 years. And the floors in the Carnegie, because as beautiful and historic as they are, our facilities person has told us we have sanded them and polished them for the last time. There's really no more resurfacing them or kind of fixing them. So we're looking to budgeting as part of this next biennium to put some money aside so that we can get those replaced. And that's going to be a much longer process. It's a historic building. We have to make sure that we're respectful of that. We're only using materials that are consistent with the historic part of it, but there's a cost to that. So I'm sorry that took so long, but these are the kind of things that Denise and I have been wrestling with, and the staff have been wrestling with for the past month as we think about budget and talk about it. So that's kind of where we're looking at, what we're looking at. It's kind of some of the things that we're trying to address in the budget. So again, I'd love to answer any questions you might have. And as we do this first round of submitting a budget and bringing back some more information, I'd love to hear, from your perspective, are there other areas that we should be focusing on? Are there other considerations that are important for us to think about? Anything you want us to keep in mind as we go through the budget.
Greg, I have a couple of things. One, I can't tell from here what the big picture is. That is, how much reduction in revenue if we take fines out and we have a flat, or slight increase, and then what kind of increase in the expense side are we into? I don't have any sense of that.
So I will be able to give you some more information on that at our next meeting, because we'll have gone through the process with our finance department and kind of gone there. I mean, I can tell you budget law requires that we have a balanced budget.
Right.
So our resources have to match our expenditures have to match our revenues. And so when we talk revenue, we've got the district revenue, which is the main source of it. We've got our general, we've got, in the past, we've had a general fund contribution. I don't anticipate that's going to change, but that's, the budget committee could make a different decision. I don't think that's likely, but it's always a possibility. We've got fine revenue is probably our third biggest source of funding. We have some other funding sources, grants and donations and things like that, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not major. So from a revenue point, it's kind of a flat district, an estimate for kind of flat district revenues. Knowing that we're not going to get fine revenue, at least for a good portion of the upcoming year. Hopefully we're going to get the same general fund contribution. So that's on the revenue side. On the expenses side, I would say the things that keep me up at night most are staffing. Just knowing we've got the second biggest service area in the county, in the district, if I believe, by population size. I'll double check that and get back to you, verify it next meeting. we've got a really ambitious strategic plan. We've got a very geographically dispersed service area where we're trying to provide services. We've got this, we feel strongly that we need to do more outreach and get out there. And it's at some point, it's just, we run across the fact that we've got a limited amount of staff. And so it's balance. That's the other big concern. It's just the balancing, those needs. We are never going to get into a position where we're spending more than we take in. Where that's going to give would be the services that we're able to offer. So, at the end of the day, if we don't have the staffing, we're going to have to say, yeah, this might be on the strategic plan, or this might be something we really wanted to do. We can't do that right now.
So you think by next meeting, we'll have some more details as to whether, whether our current staff projected into the next biennium can be paid for?
Yes, I am very confident that our current staff, yes, our current staff should be paid for the next biennium. We're not looking at cuts. I don't think we're going to have to cut any staff or anything like that. That's not what we're talking about. It's much more along the lines of, boy, there's a lot of opportunities out there. Boy, there's a lot our community would love us to do. How do we do that? Given the assumption that staff, may stay flat, or, I don't have the ability to go out and hire 5 new staff members. It's just, it's
Yeah.
not gonna happen. So
Thank you.
that's more where I'm coming from is, yes, great plans, great things looking forward. Boy, some of those might be a lift when it comes to staffing. So
Thank you.
We are running very late,
Yeah,
so
we
we need to wrap up. I know Elizabeth had to go, and that's completely understandable. And I apologize for taking up some unexpected time during the meeting today. So if Greg, if there are any other questions that must be answered now, I'd suggest we move on to communications, unless Greg, you have something else to add, or are there any other important questions that need to be asked tonight? All right, then we will move on then to communications. And Nick, do you have an update from LDAC?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same report as last month. There's still a meeting being planned for, I always get the month wrong. Is it April?
March.
March, okay. And then the other thing is that there is some activities trying to figure out the large task force that we talk about that's separate from LDAC. And it's being explored about how we could possibly get that group back together. And it's been a while, so there's probably a lot of changes in the folks that were committed to doing it before, and also just how do you do it with Zoom and all those kind of things. So that's just being explored right now. So probably have a better report next month.
All right, thank you, Nick. Cynthia, do you have an update from the Library Foundation?
Yes, we met January 21st. We have 558 children under the age of 5 registered for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library Project. That's an ongoing cost of about $1,500 a month. And we'll need to have a little more discussion about that cost-wise in the future. We have a draft memorandum of understanding that went out to the Oregon City Schools Foundation, which should be finalized next month, and it outlines the responsibilities for managing the Dolly Parton project by the Library Foundation and the Schools Foundation, and we're very happy with that. And it's going to take quite a bit of, I don't know, tedious work off the shoulders of the foundation board and share it with the Oregon City Schools Foundation. And we're very excited about that, which will free us up to explore some additional options. And we have 2 new board members, Rosa Walker and Rhonda Herring from the, Rhonda represents the Oregon City Schools Foundation.
Great. Thank you, Cynthia. And of course, as always, thank you to both Nick and Cynthia for being our liaisons to these other groups. And that brings up the fact that we do have an empty spot, and we need someone to deal with the Friends of the Library. And so that'll be something in the future. We need to get somebody to do that. If you're willing, that'd be great. So if there are no questions about the communications, the next item is future agenda items. Does anybody have anything for that? So if there is, what's that?
Oh, all I'll say is I put in a calendar, a suggested calendar for future agenda items. It's in the packet. I did take an opportunity to review this with Chair Edwards and Vice Chair Goldberg, and kind of trying to plan out, what the meetings are going to be over the course of this upcoming year. We always have flexibility, and I think this year has taught us nothing if that we need to be adaptable and flexible as things change. But if there are thoughts about whether that looks like a good plan or at least a good outline for now, I'd be, in the absence of any feedback, that's kind of where I'm, of what I think the meetings for the next year are gonna look like. So.
Does everyone who's going to be here next month agree with that? Any comments from anyone else on that? All right. Great. Is there anything else? Is there any unfinished or new business?
Just, is there anybody who wants to volunteer right now to be the Friends liaison? I know they would love to have a liaison. They're a wonderful, wonderful group.
Yeah.
See, I think Scott had been the default, and now he's going to be in Wyoming. So
Well, maybe we can ask Elizabeth if she's interested.
okay, maybe I will send out an email to the group formally soliciting anybody's interest in that. They're a great group, and they really do support the library quite a bit. And I'd love for us to continue to have that representation from the board with the Friends. I think it's a great partnership to have. So
It's only about 45 minutes, I think, at 4 before our meetings, on the same day we have our meetings, I think.
correct. Yes, it's usually on the same day, the same Wednesday that we have these board meetings, 45 minutes to an hour. The downside is you have to listen to me go through the director's report twice in one day. So,
What time is that meeting?
they recently changed. It's now 4 o'clock. They usually have it from 4 to 5.
I need to jump on another Zoom meeting, so I'm going to depart. But Scott, the best going forward for you.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes, good luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And
All
the
right.
best for all of you and for the Oregon City Library, for the board, for for Greg and Denise and all the staff. It's been just a real honor and privilege to be able to serve and to work with all you. So I wish you all the best going forward. And if there is no more unfinished or new business, then this meeting is adjourned.
Great. I will call you, Greg.
Okay, sounds
Greg,
good.
I had a question for you. Do
Yeah,
we need to
fine.
open recruitment again for this opening on the board?
I'm going to talk to Katie tomorrow.
Okay.
And find out what she advises.
Okay.
Denise, do you want to stop the recording real quick?
Sure.